Recent moves by Hertz indicates that their CEO, Stephen Scherr, might be operating on the order of what Elon Musk operates on. In other words, playing 4D chess where everybody else is only playing 2D chess. Plus, sadly enough, it looks like Arcimoto might be shuttering its doors. Let's take a look. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All, so I'm going to start with the sad part of this story. Briefly, I want to mention that Arcimoto, which is it FUV, yes, Fun Utility Vehicle, that's their stock ticker. Anyway, yesterday they said that they were shutting down operations in their Oregon factory and likely filing for bankruptcy due to the fact that they just don't have enough cash to keep going. I've actually driven an Arcimoto and it was a lot of fun to drive, but trying to mass produce these things, find your niche, get the prices down, and especially when you look at all the economic headwinds of the last year, it's not surprising that they had difficulty and are going to have to go bankrupt. But I feel like there are a lot of other EV companies that will probably go this route, including, ones that are significantly bigger than Arcimoto. So anyway, hopefully they will figure out a way to reemerge from bankruptcy. That would be really lovely, but that is kind of sad news. It's also, again, fairly expected because mass manufacturing vehicles is really difficult, as Elon Musk has said. Also, one other quick aside, I actually was watching the Electric Viking this morning, and Sam Evans said that the head of Kia in the UK said that Tesla's moves to do the price cuts that they've done, the drastic ones, and if you haven't seen that video, check that out. Anyway, he said that they are dangerous and bad for the industry. That sounds a lot like sour grapes from people who are not able to follow that, right? Kia's probably already making just barely nothing on each of their EVs, so they can't do some substantial drops like that. Plus, at least in the United States, they are not going to be eligible for the tax breaks that most of Tesla's vehicles will be eligible for after these huge price cuts. So they're looking at some serious problems right now. Anyway, it's just an interesting thing that you've got people saying that these moves are dangerous for the consumer and bad for the industry. It's more like bad for all the competition and really, really good for the consumer and good for the industry. So speaking of the UK, we can turn to our main story here, which is all about Hertz. So Hertz recently announced that starting in the UK and then in France and Germany, I believe next, and then rolling out to Europe, they are going to be purchasing a fleet of vehicles from Tesla and Polestar and then renting them to Uber drivers, just like they are in the United States already. And I've actually ridden in a couple of Uber rides with people who are leasing from Uber through Hertz. It's a very complicated chain. But anyway, these people are saving a lot of money. The people who are driving these Ubers basically get a new Tesla and they save a lot of money because they're paying a certain amount per month for the vehicle with all of the insurance and all of that stuff. So it's just kind of one pretty little package that you pay a flat rate for every single month, and then you drive the vehicle and you make your money and you just shave that off the top for business expenses. And of course you have to pay for charging and stuff like that. But basically this saves them a lot of money over owning an ICE vehicle because the lease fees aren't that much. And again, I'm not going to say specifics, but people said it was on the order of a couple of $100s a month. So it's not outrageously expensive, at least, again, this is just anecdotal. This is just from the couple of people that I've talked to in this situation, but it's not a drastic amount of money they're paying. And that removes all of these other things because of course, if you purchase a car, you have to pay to finance it. You also have to pay insurance on it. And of course you have to pay for maintenance and gas, etc. So this comes out to be a better deal for the Uber drivers, but the real genius of this move is not so much from Uber's part. Yeah, they're actually doing pretty well too out of this whole deal, but the genius is actually on Hertz's part. What they are doing is they're having third-party customers, both rental customers and Uber drivers as well. They're having them pay off the costs of these vehicles. So remember, for the Uber drivers, these vehicles are leased. These Uber drivers are not going to own this vehicle after whatever period it is, 1 or 2 years or 3 years or something like that. They drive these vehicles for that amount of time and then it goes back to Hertz. And of course, for rental cars as well, Hertz just owns these vehicles. They purchase the vehicles and then they rent them out to individual customers. So either way, Hertz owns a very large and growing rapidly fleet of vehicles. And now not just in the United States and Canada, but also now in the UK and then into Europe. And we'll see where else they go. But basically what they're doing is they're creating a gigantic fleet of vehicles that other people are paying for. So worst case scenario for Hertz is if Tesla does not solve full self-driving, they just turn around and sell these vehicles eventually at the end of their lives. And again, they've paid off the cost of the vehicle, they've made some money, and then when they sell the vehicles later on, they make more money off of this. And EVs, have a really good resale value, even though obviously things have collapsed recently, relatively speaking, but they still have a very good resale value. People still want them on the used market. So they have kind of a no-lose strategy here. They can't lose money on this whole thing. It's a really good strategy. But the real genius move here is that if robotaxi, if full self-driving is solved and Tesla gets regulatory approval, and the likelihood is that they will get that in the United States first and then probably Canada and then Europe next. And look at where Hertz is rolling out these fleets. If they solve this problem, Hertz can immediately flip a switch and they've got a multi-100,000 unit fleet out there that they can just turn into robotaxis at any time. So rather than renting a vehicle, right? So maybe I fly to Las Vegas like I did for CES, and rather than taking Uber rides or renting a vehicle for a week and paying all the costs, because it's relatively expensive to do that. Plus you have to pay to put it in a garage someplace. You know, there's, I don't know, in Las Vegas, not so much, but like in San Diego or other cities, you have to pay to garage these things as well. So you're looking at a fairly large expense. Why not, on the other hand, if there was a fleet of robotaxis out there and they were cheaper than Uber drivers, that would be really good for the consumer. It would be very, very, you know, it's a no-brainer decision to choose to ride in a Hertz Robotaxi instead of paying for an Uber driver or paying to rent the car yourself. And of course, Hertz can do all three of these things, but they could take a portion. Let's say they had 300,000 units, just, you know, for rough numbers. So they could do 100,000 as robotaxis, 100,000 to rent, and 100,000 to Uber drivers. So they can play the field and they can see which one is the most economically viable in each market, and they can mess around with that stuff. But I've been saying for a long time, ever since full self-driving looked like it was going to get solved in the near future, I was like, if I had money, the thing that I would do would be to purchase a whole bunch of Teslas, because number one, you couldn't really lose as long as somebody else was paying them off, as what Hertz has got this situation in. So if Tesla doesn't solve the problem, you're still fine. But if and when Tesla does solve the full self-driving problem, you have got the biggest fleet out there of vehicles, bigger than what Tesla has, because Tesla leases some of their vehicles, but I don't think that as many people as the Hertz fleet is going to be actually lease their vehicles. Now, I could be wrong about that. Of course, Tesla doesn't release these figures individually as far as I know, so they may lease more vehicles than you think. But anyway, the likelihood is that Hertz will actually have a larger fleet of Tesla EVs than even Tesla has access to, because they sold me my Model Y. So my Model Y is mine. So eventually Tesla could roll out kind of an Uber type of situation where I could rent my vehicle out when I'm not using it. But that's not the same thing, because you get whatever this, slice of the profit margin is, because you have to share it with me, because, obviously I want to make money if I'm going to do something like that. So if you had this big of a slice, 50 cents or something like that per mile or whatever, then Tesla might only get 20 or 25 cents out of that. Whereas Hertz, by owning these vehicles, could get most of that 50 cents per mile. So Hertz probably in the background right now is working on their own sort of robotaxi Uber clone, and probably also getting data out of the Uber drivers. They're seeing how these people drive. They get to see exactly where they go. I mean, Teslas are kind of ultimate spyware. If you turn this stuff on, you can see everywhere they've been, how fast they drove, where they went back and forth a lot. And Uber drivers are driving 100,000 miles a year. So they get a ton of data out of this, and exactly where the best robotaxi centers would be, where the best, most lucrative routes would be, and all of this other information. So Hertz is just sitting on a gold mine of data, and they're sitting on a growing fleet of vehicles that they own and that other people are paying off. And that, my friends, is a pretty genius move on Hertz's part. So I wish I had that kind of money to be able to invest in a fleet. Hertz does. Amazingly enough, I mean, just a couple of years ago, they were bankrupt and they came out of bankruptcy. And now I have a feeling that they're not going to just dominate the rental car market, but they're going to dominate the next generation of this. They're going to dominate the robotaxi fleet market. And while you're thinking about this, don't feel bad for Tesla, because of course Tesla is going to be manufacturing a Model 2 vehicle, which is not going to be called Model 2, but whatever. They're going to make a more mass market vehicle, and they will have the choice at some point not to sell some of those units, or Model Ys and Model 3s if they want to. They can hold back these things, right? They're manufacturing a ton of these vehicles, so they can always hold it back. They have the lease fleet that they will be getting back after people own them for 3 years. And that lease fleet, as opposed to Uber, where people are driving a lot, or a rental car market where they're driving a lot, the leases are restricted to 10,000 miles a year. So after 3 years, these cars will only have 30,000 miles on them. So they're basically brand new, plus they're paid off. So Tesla is going to do fine. And the other genius thing for Tesla here is that basically Hertz is doing free advertising for them. You've got customers either through Uber rides, Uber driving, or renting a Tesla from Hertz that are getting into a Tesla for the first time. They drive it around, they ride in it, they talk to the Uber driver, whatever that circumstance is, and they find out information about it, and they're like, this is a really good car, this is great to drive, I really enjoy it. So Tesla is getting free marketing out of this, and of course they also have access because they build the vehicles to however many they want to hold back. So it's not like Tesla is getting left out of this really lovely scenario. They're also a huge winner in this. And so what we could see is, this is going to be a winner takes most type of thing once it actually happens. If and when full self-driving is solved and there's regulatory approval for it, you're going to see Hertz take a really big slice and Tesla take a really big slice, and they're going to squeeze out a lot of other manufacturers, including companies like Hyundai, Kia. So, these guys, I think that they see what's coming, and that's one of the reasons why they're like, hey, cry foul, do something like that, make some noise and try to make it sound like this is an unfair and a bad thing for the consumer. Ultimately, this is all going to be for the good of the consumer. I don't know about having a winner takes almost all, right? You want some competition. So hopefully there'll be at least a half a dozen companies that will come out of this very much on top so that there's competition between them. But Tesla and Hertz right now are looking at transformative amounts of money that could be coming into them. And don't forget, Tesla also is looking at the Optimus Tesla bot too. So, that's a whole other thing. But just in terms of vehicles, if and when Tesla can solve full self-driving, things are going to radically change. And the big players in the world of automotive are going to radically change. And if people aren't paying attention to this and investing in the wrong thing, again, not a financial analyst, but at least for me, if I was investing in things, I would be paying attention to this as I was thinking about investing for the next few years. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it fun and interesting and thought-provoking. If you did, please do like it so other people can find it. And of course, consider subscribing for more of this kind of content. As always, a huge shout out to my patrons on Patreon. Thank you all so much for starting out a wonderful 2023. And if you're interested in joining the conversation, just check out the link in the description. And if you're interested in a whole bunch of really cool merch, check out our merch store. Link is in the description. We have Tesla Bot t-shirts, the Tesla meme t-shirt, success is a possible outcome, 4680 battery cells. All of that stuff is on t-shirts, mugs, tumblers, and on and on. So check it out. And for those of you interested in investing, check out WeBull, an amazing platform for buying and selling stocks, and now cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and others. Open an account and get a free stock valued at up to $200, and fund your account and get another free stock valued at up to $1,600. Check out the link in the description and help the channel at the same time. Thank you. And finally, don't forget we are both Tesla and Amazon affiliates. If you look in the description, you can see how going shopping for a solar roof, a power wall, or anything on Amazon helps out the channel. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.